Okay, next section I kind of want to talk about is this 6 to 8 months. This period can be quite pressurized because often we think, right, okay, we've got to the 6 months, they're going to be eating solids, sleep is going to get better, right? And you may have heard the myths, right from 6 months, that's when babies can sleep through, or from this weight. There is no age or any set weight where anybody could say to you, your baby has the ability to sleep through. Nobody knows that. And unfortunately, sometimes when we do introduce solids, you can end up having more kind of reflux issues, possible allergies, intolerances, constipation. So just kind of when you're entering this phase, just know in terms of sleep, the research shows that hunger has very little here in terms of kind of being able to sleep for long periods. And so the solids doesn't have a huge impact in terms of sleep. And just know that if there are any kind of issues or complications with feeding, it's going to have a knock-on effect. And so just to take it slowly and to know that that is normal. The upside of this age is that what you tend to find is you get a little bit more kind of consistency and predictability. And so prior to this age, you may well have some really short naps. Most babies may be taking kind of 30-minute nap, 40-minute naps. Some parents will get very obsessed about this. They're kind of 32 minutes on the dot, and they worry that they're not getting enough sleep. But actually, it's exactly what their baby needs. Unless your baby is waking up from a 30-minute nap and they are desperately trying to get back to sleep, then maybe they need a longer sleep, and it's fine just to kind of rock them or feed them back to sleep. But what tends to happen around the 6 to 8 month period is there is a huge kind of neurological development, and babies naturally are able to stay awake for a little bit longer during the daytime, and their naps increase in length. Now, some babies will end up doing kind of 30 to then 50-minute nap or 40-minute nap. Some will do up to an hour or an hour and a half. Some babies will stick to those 30-minute naps, okay? That's just because that's what they need, and they tend to have lower sleep needs. That's okay. Those short naps, they are always contributing to the overall sleep, and it's much better to support what your kind of little one shows that they need. So whilst longer naps can obviously be really beneficial and helpful to parents, don't feel any pressure to kind of push those because they will happen naturally. Around this age, you kind of the 9 months, you've got this sort of separation anxiety where your baby suddenly realizes when you're not there, they don't necessarily understand. So say you've gone into another room, that you are still in their world. And so things like kind of introducing something like a comforter, just to start kind of adding another support mechanism can really help. In terms of safety, you don't necessarily want that in the cot until they are over 12 months because the Lullaby Trust recommends a clear pot policy. But introducing a comforter whilst you're doing something like feeding or rocking to sleep can really help provide another kind of layer of support so that as they get older, they may well be up for using something like a comforter to fall asleep. So just kind of knowing what may be coming in those age ranges can really help. And from the kind of 6 to 8 to 9 months, you are reducing in naps. And this always means that life tends to get easier. The less naps they are, the less there is to think about. And once they drop to 2 naps, things generally get a little bit more consistent and more predictable. Again, you're unlikely to have set times where your baby, you go, right, it's always 10 o'clock. But it may be loosely around that time. And it's very much down to temperament, whether your baby is, someone who's very specific about times, or whether they're a bit more like, some days I'm going to have a nap at 9, some days it's going to be 11. Some days I might sleep for 2 hours, some days I'm going to sleep for 30 minutes. Again, that's really normal. They're not robots, and we don't expect that they should kind of take very consistent naps for set times. So I want to talk to you about the 12-month period. So when little ones get to 12 months, often again, we can feel the pressure that they should be sleeping through, that everything should be easy from this point onwards. And it may well be the case, but this is a period that I just want you to be aware of because it can be when sleep gets quite tricky. So things may have been really good, and suddenly you get to this age and they're starting to try to walk, and they're doing a lot more moving and babbling, starting to use words. It can affect sleep. And so there's a little bit of a kind of a trick that you can use here, and that is babies, kind of little ones, don't tend to drop to one nap till around 16 to 18 months. But around 12 months, what you might notice is your little one is really fighting sleep. And often they temporarily want to, and actually it supports their nighttime sleep, drop to one nap. And they may just do that for 1 or 2 months and then flip-flop back to the 2 naps and then eventually going to the 1. And again, it's just something to be aware of. It may well kind of really help in terms of sleep, but just to know, again, there's no pressure. Obviously, we all want to be getting kind of more sleep, but there's no pressure. There's no set time or age where your baby should be doing a certain amount. And in terms of kind of when a baby sleeps through, it's, how long is a piece of string? And some babies will do that very early on, and some babies will take a really long time. In terms of young babies, generally babies, are going to want to be woken if they're sleeping for a long period of time and you're worried about feeding. But as they get older, those who kind of fall into the natural rhythm of sleeping for longer, they tend to have the temperament of soothers. So their natural temperament, they're born this way, is that they might be able to kind of suck on their hand or their thumb or their finger. They might kind of babble a little bit. As they get older, they might roll around to get into a position to fall asleep. And they might do that in between sleep cycles, which means they're naturally going to be able to kind of sleep for longer periods. Whereas there are those babies who are known as signalers, and they are the ones who really struggle to fall to sleep. When they are coming out of a sleep cycle, they really need your help. And it's really worth just kind of knowing what type of baby, they're going to be on the continuum somewhere, but just knowing if your baby wakes up and you know that they very rarely can do any of those things where they suck on their finger, dummy, comforter, get themselves back to sleep. As soon as you hear them start to wake up, if they are more of the signaler, is just get to them as quickly as possible. Help them get back to sleep, because that's going to mean easier sleep for everybody. Because once a baby wakes up and they can become more alert, sometimes it can take a lot longer to get back to sleep. And whenever you are helping a baby back to sleep, you are always supporting their sleep. So it's much better to go, right, I'm going to help you get back to sleep, because actually what this means is I'm going to get back to sleep much quicker. And so that kind of support and helping a baby to sleep is looking in the long run, you are on the path to kind of helping them be able to fall asleep independently, have a really good relationship with sleep, because they're learning to fall asleep, feeling really safe and secure. All of them become soothers. It's just a case of when is that going to happen? Knowing about your baby's own individual needs and thinking about how you can support that. And that always comes about from kind of creating these loose routines and rhythms that support their needs.